My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 31, and I used to believe that family meant unconditional love. But last December, I learned that sometimes family just means you're the first person they call when they need something, especially money. It started with a phone call from my older sister, Lauren. She lives in Chicago with her husband and 2 kids. I live in Boston, 1,000 miles away, working long hours as a nurse. Lauren's voice was bright, almost too cheerful. "Rachel, you have to come home for Christmas this year. Mom's been talking about it for weeks. She says it won't be the same without you." I hesitated. The holidays were always complicated in our family. Old arguments, silent dinners, and the unspoken rule that Rachel would fix whatever went wrong. But Lauren kept pushing. "Please, Rach, it's been so long. The kids miss you. Mom's not getting any younger." I caved, like I always do. I booked a flight, used up my last vacation days, and spent half my savings on gifts for everyone. I even arranged to swap shifts with a coworker, just so I could be there for Christmas Eve. The night before my flight, my mom called. She sounded tired, her voice thin. "Rachel, honey, I'm so glad you're coming. We really need you this year." I asked if everything was okay. She dodged the question, just said, "It'll be better when you're here." I should have known then that something was off. But I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. The flight from Boston to Chicago was delayed twice. I spent hours in the airport, scrolling through old family photos on my phone, trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing. When I finally landed, it was nearly midnight. The city was blanketed in snow, the streets quiet and empty. Lauren picked me up at the airport. She barely got out of the car, just popped the trunk and waved. "Hey, Rach! Toss your bag in. The kids are asleep in the back." I climbed in, shivering, and tried to make small talk. But Lauren was distracted, tapping at her phone, sighing about traffic and bills. When we pulled up to my parents' house, the porch light was off. I dragged my suitcase up the steps, heart pounding a little, hoping for a warm welcome. Instead, my mom opened the door in her bathrobe, hair in curlers, and said, "You're late. We were just about to go to bed." No hug. No, "I missed you." Just a tired sigh and a glance at the clock. Inside, the house looked the same as always. Family photos on the walls, the smell of cinnamon and old carpet, the Christmas tree blinking in the corner. My dad was in his recliner, half asleep, TV flickering in the background. He grunted a hello, barely looking up. Lauren carried the kids upstairs, and my mom handed me a list. "Here's what we need for Christmas dinner." I didn't have time to shop. "You can take my car in the morning." I stared at the list. Turkey, potatoes, wine, gifts for the neighbors, even wrapping paper. My name was written at the top in her neat handwriting, like it was always meant to be my job. I wanted to ask why no one else could help, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I nodded, took the list, and went to the guest room, feeling more like a visitor than a daughter. As I lay in bed, listening to the house settle around me, I wondered if coming home was a mistake. But I told myself, it's just 1 week. You can get through anything for 1 week. I had no idea how wrong I was. The next morning, I woke to the sound of kids running down the hallway and the smell of burnt toast. I found Lauren in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone while her kids argued over cereal. My mom was nowhere to be seen. "Morning," I said, forcing a smile. Lauren barely looked up. "Hey, can you watch them for a bit? I have to make a call about the car insurance." "Oh, and Mom said you'd do the grocery run." I nodded, swallowing my frustration. I poured the kids some juice, found my mom's car keys, and headed out into the icy morning. The roads were slick, the parking lot at the grocery store packed with last-minute shoppers. I spent over an hour weaving through crowds, checking off every item on the list, and trying not to think about how much it was all going to cost. At the checkout, I pulled out my own credit card. The total made my stomach drop, but I told myself it was fine. It's Christmas. It's family. This is what you do. When I got home, I found my mom in the living room, sorting through a stack of bills. She barely glanced at the bags of groceries. "Did you get the wine? The neighbors expect it." I nodded, setting everything on the counter. She handed me another list. This one for the pharmacy, the bakery, and a few more little things she'd forgotten. I wanted to ask if anyone else was going to help. But Lauren was gone, and my dad was outside shoveling snow in silence. I felt invisible, like a ghost moving through someone else's life. That afternoon, I wrapped gifts for the kids, baked cookies, and tried to ignore the ache in my chest. Every time I sat down, someone called my name. "Rachel, can you help with this? Rachel, can you run to the store? Rachel, can you watch the kids?" By the end of the day, I was exhausted. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when I'd stopped being a daughter and started being the family's unpaid assistant. I promised myself I'd talk to my mom in the morning. I'd tell her how I felt. But deep down, I already knew what she'd say. The next morning, I found my mom at the kitchen table, her coffee growing cold as she stared at a pile of unopened envelopes. I took a deep breath and sat across from her. "Mum, can we talk?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. She looked up, her eyes tired. "What's wrong, Rachel?" I hesitated, then pushed forward. I feel like I'm here to help, but it's like I'm the only one doing anything. I flew across the country. I've been running errands, watching the kids, paying for everything. I want to spend time with you, not just be the one who fixes things. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Rachel, you know how hard things have been. Your father's hours got cut, Lauren's barely making ends meet. And I'm just trying to keep everyone together. You're the one who always has it together. You're the strong one." I felt the old guilt rising, the familiar ache of being needed but never really seen. "I want to help, Mom. But I can't do it all. I need to feel like I'm part of the family, not just the one who pays for everything." She looked away, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, honey. I don't know what else to do." I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "We have to start sharing the load. I can't keep doing this alone." She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I knew she'd say yes now, but by tomorrow, it would be the same old story. Later that day, Lauren cornered me in the hallway. "Did you talk to Mom? She's upset. You know she's under a lot of stress, right?" I bit my tongue, not wanting to start a fight. "I know. I just want things to be fair." Lauren rolled her eyes. "You always make everything about money, Rachel. Not everything is about you." I walked away, my heart pounding. I wanted to scream, to tell her how much I'd given up, how tired I was of being the family's safety net. But I kept quiet, swallowing my anger like I always did. That night I lay awake, listening to the house creak and settle. I wondered if things would ever change, or if I was doomed to play this role forever. Christmas Eve arrived with a heavy gray sky and a sense of tension that clung to every corner of the house. I woke early, hoping for a quiet moment, but the kitchen was already buzzing. My mom was barking orders, Lauren was on the phone with her husband, and the kids were fighting over the TV remote. I tried to help, setting the table, peeling potatoes, keeping the kids from tearing open their presents too soon. Every time I paused, someone handed me another task. Rachel, can you check the oven? Rachel, can you run to the store for more butter? Rachel, the kids are hungry. Can you make them a snack? By noon, I was running on fumes. I stepped outside for a breath of cold air, letting the snowflakes melt on my cheeks. I watched families on the street laughing, carrying bags of gifts, hugging each other. I wondered if any of them felt as invisible as I did. When I came back inside, I found my dad in the garage, staring at a stack of bills. He looked up, his face drawn. Rachel, do you have a minute? I nodded, bracing myself. He handed me an envelope. We're behind on the mortgage again. I hate to ask, but if you could help, just this once, it would mean a lot. I stared at the envelope, my heart sinking. Dad, I've already sent money this year. I can't keep doing this. He sighed, looking away. I know. I don't know what else to do. I wanted to scream, to tell him that I was drowning, too. But instead, I just nodded, promising to see what I could do. That night, as we sat around the dinner table, my mom raised a glass. To family, she said, her voice trembling. We may not have much, but we have each other. I forced a smile, clinking my glass with the others. But inside, I felt hollow. I wondered how much longer I could keep pretending that love meant giving until there was nothing left. As I lay in bed, listening to the distant sound of carolers, I made a silent promise. This would be the last year I let myself be used. Christmas morning dawned cold and bright. The kids woke before sunrise, tearing through wrapping paper, squealing with delight. I watched from the couch, clutching a mug of coffee, trying to summon some of their joy. My gifts to them, books, puzzles, a new winter coat for each, were met with quick thank you before they moved on to the next box. Lauren handed me a small, hastily wrapped package. From all of us, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Inside was a scented candle and a pair of socks. I smiled, thanked her, and tried not to think about the credit card bill waiting for me back in Boston. After breakfast, my mom pulled me aside. Rachel, can you watch the kids for a few hours? Loren and I need to run some errands. Your dad's going to help us. I nodded, too tired to argue. The kids were restless, fighting over toys and begging for more screen time. I tried to keep them busy, building a fort in the living room, reading stories, making hot chocolate. But every hour felt heavier than the last. When Lauren and my mom finally returned, arms full of shopping bags, I realized they hadn't just run errands. They'd gone out for lunch, had their nails done, and picked up a few things. Just for themselves. I stared at the receipts on the counter. The total more than I'd spent on groceries for the whole week. That evening, as I cleaned up after dinner, Lauren breezed past me. Thanks for watching the kids, Ratch. You're a lifesaver. I wanted to ask when it would be my turn to be taken care of, but the words caught in my throat. I finished the dishes in silence, the ache in my chest growing heavier. That night, I sat by the window, watching the snow fall. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn my family's love, all the times I'd put their needs before my own. I wondered if they'd ever see me as more than just the one who fixes everything. For the first time, I let myself imagine a different kind of life. One where I chose myself, even if it meant disappointing the people I loved. The days after Christmas blurred together in a haze of chores and small resentments. My family seemed to move around me. Not with me. My mom planning her next shopping trip, Lauren glued to her phone, my dad disappearing into the garage for hours at a time. I felt like a guest in my own childhood home, useful only when someone needed something. One afternoon, I overheard Lauren on the phone with her husband. "Rachel's here, so it's actually been easy. She's handling everything. I don't know what we'd do without her." Her words stung, not because they were untrue, but because they were so casual, like my help was a given, not a gift. That evening, my mom called a family meeting in the living room. I sat on the edge of the couch, bracing myself. She cleared her throat, glancing at Lauren and my dad. "We've been talking, and well, we need to ask for your help again, Rachel. Just for a little while longer." Lauren chimed in. "We're all going to the lake house for New Year's. It's been planned for months. The kids are so excited, but we need someone to stay here with Grandma. She can't be alone, and you're the only one who can do it." I stared at them, stunned. "You want me to stay behind and babysit Grandma while you all go on vacation?" My mom's eyes filled with tears. "Please, honey. We never get to do things as a family anymore. You know how much this means to us." I looked at my dad, hoping for support, but he just shrugged. "It's only a few days, Rachel. You're good with Grandma. We'll make it up to you." I felt the familiar guilt rising, the urge to say yes, to be the good daughter. But something inside me snapped. I realized that no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. I stood up, my voice shaking. "No, I'm not staying behind. I came home to see my family, not to be left out while you all go have fun." The room went silent. My mom's face crumpled, Lauren looked away, and my dad muttered something under his breath. For the first time, I didn't back down. I walked out of the room, my heart pounding, and locked myself in the guest room. I knew I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of freedom. The fallout was immediate. My mom knocked on my door, her voice trembling. "Rachel, please don't do this. You're making things so hard for everyone." I stayed quiet, staring at the ceiling, refusing to let the guilt swallow me whole. Lauren sent a string of texts, first pleading, then angry. "You're being selfish. We never ask you for much. Why can't you just help for once?" I scrolled through the messages, my hands shaking, but I didn't reply. Dinner that night was tense. No one spoke. The kids picked at their food, sensing the shift in the air. My dad barely looked at me. My mom's eyes were red, but she didn't say a word. Afterward, I went for a walk in the cold, letting the sharp air clear my head. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to keep the peace. All the times I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. I realized I'd been so afraid of being called ungrateful or selfish that I'd forgotten what it felt like to have boundaries. When I got back, I found Grandma in the den, watching old movies. She patted the seat beside her. "You look tired, honey. Family wearing you out?" I managed a weak smile. "Something like that." She squeezed my hand. "You know, when I was your age, I let everyone walk all over me. Took me decades to learn that saying, no doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do." Her words settled deep in my chest. I sat with her for a while, letting the comfort of her presence soothe the ache inside me. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to choose myself." For the first time, I believed it. The next morning, the house was quiet. My family moved around me with stiff politeness, as if I were a stranger. Lauren barely spoke, my mom avoided my eyes, and my dad disappeared behind the newspaper. Only the kids seemed unchanged, tugging at my sleeve to show me their new toys. I spent the day helping Grandma with her crossword puzzles, and listening to her stories about growing up in a different time. She told me about the sacrifices she'd made for her family, the dreams she'd set aside, and the regrets she carried. "Don't let them take your whole life, Rachel," she said softly. "You get to have your own story, too." That afternoon, Lauren announced that they were leaving for the lake house in the morning. "We'll be back before New Year's," she said. Her tone clipped. "There's food in the fridge. Grandma's pills are in the cabinet. You know what to do." I nodded, feeling numb. I wanted to scream, to beg them to see me, to understand how much it hurt to be left behind. But I just smiled tightly and said, "Have a good trip." That night, I packed my suitcase. I stared at the pile of gifts I'd brought, the receipts for groceries and presents, the list of chores I'd done. I realized that no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. I called a friend back in Boston, my voice shaking. "I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm disappearing." She listened quietly, then said, "Rachel, you don't owe them your whole life. You're allowed to leave." I lay awake for hours, turning her words over in my mind. For the first time, I let myself imagine what it would feel like to walk away. The morning my family left for the lake house, the house felt emptier than ever. My mom gave me a quick, distracted hug, Lauren barely said goodbye, and my dad just grunted as he loaded the car. The kids waved from the back seat, not understanding why I wasn't coming with them. As the car pulled away, I stood on the porch, the cold biting through my sweater. For a moment, I felt abandoned, like a piece of luggage left behind. But then, a strange sense of relief washed over me. The house was finally quiet. I could breathe. I spent the first day with Grandma, making her favorite soup and listening to her hum along to old songs on the radio. She seemed happier with just the two of us, telling me stories I'd never heard before. About her first job, her secret dreams, the love she'd lost and found. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the snow fall. I thought about my life in Boston, the friends who missed me, the job I loved, the apartment that felt more like home than this house ever had. I realized I'd been living my life for everyone else, always waiting for permission to put myself first. I called my friend again. "I think I want to come home early," I said, my voice steadier this time. She didn't hesitate. "Book the ticket, Ratch. You deserve to be somewhere you're wanted." I looked around the house, at the photos on the walls, the memories layered over every surface. I felt a pang of sadness, but also a spark of hope. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for my family to change, and start changing my own story. That night, I booked a flight back to Boston for the next morning. I left a note for my mom, explaining that I needed to go home, that I loved them. But I couldn't keep giving until there was nothing left. For the first time in years, I fell asleep without dread in my chest. I woke before dawn, quietly packing my things so I wouldn't wake Grandma. I left her a note, thanking her for her kindness and promising to call soon. As I wheeled my suitcase down the hallway, I paused in the living room, taking one last look at the house that had shaped so much of who I was, and so much of what I was ready to leave behind. The taxi ride to the airport was silent. I watched the city wake up, the sky turning from black to gray to pale blue. My phone buzzed with a message from Lauren. "Where are you? Did you forget about Grandma?" I replied simply, "She's safe." I left her a note. "I need to go home." At the airport, I felt a strange mix of guilt and freedom. I kept waiting for the panic to set in, for the regret to overwhelm me. But as the plane took off, all I felt was relief. I watched the city shrink below me, the snow covered rooftops fading into clouds, and I let myself breathe. Back in Boston, my apartment felt warmer than I remembered. My friend met me at the door with takeout and a hug. "You did the right thing," she said. "You chose yourself." For the first time, I believed her. The next few days were quiet. I caught up on sleep, went for long walks, and let myself enjoy the small freedoms I'd forgotten. Making coffee just for me, reading a book in silence. Not waiting for the next demand. My phone buzzed with messages from my family. Some angry, some pleading, some silent. I didn't answer right away. I needed space to remember who I was when I wasn't fixing everyone else's problems. One evening, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. I realized I wasn't lonely. I was finally alone on my own terms. A few days later, Lauren called. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was sharp, brittle. "I can't believe you just left. Mom's furious. Dad says you abandoned us. Grandma's been asking for you." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I didn't abandon anyone, Lauren. I needed to come home. I needed to take care of myself for once." She scoffed. "You're so dramatic. We all have problems, Rachel. You think you're the only one who's tired." I felt the old guilt rising, but I pushed it down. "I know you're tired. But I can't keep being the one who fixes everything. I can't keep giving until there's nothing left for me." There was a long silence. Then, softer, Lauren said, "Mom's worried about the bills. Dad's talking about selling the house. Everything's falling apart." I closed my eyes, feeling the ache in her words. "I'm sorry, Lauren. I really am, but I can't save everyone. You all have to figure this out together." She hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, letting the quiet settle around me. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to hold my family together, all the times I'd sacrificed my own happiness for theirs. I realized that loving them didn't mean losing myself. I wrote in my journal, "I am not responsible for everyone else's happiness. I am allowed to choose my own." For the first time, I felt the truth of those words settle deep in my bones. The days turned into weeks. Winter in Boston was harsh, but I found comfort in the routines I built for myself. Morning coffee at the corner cafe. Evening walks through the snow-dusted park. Quiet nights spent reading or calling friends who made me laugh. I started to feel lighter, as if a weight I'd carried for years was finally slipping away. My family's messages slowed. My mom sent a few short texts. "Hope you're well. Grandma misses you." But there were no more lists, no more requests for money or help. Lauren stayed silent. My dad didn't reach out at all. At work, I threw myself into my job, picking up extra shifts, volunteering for new projects. My boss noticed the change. "You seem different, Rachel. Happier. More focused." I smiled, realizing it was true. Without the constant drain of family drama, I had energy for my own life. One Saturday, I met up with friends for brunch. We laughed, swapped stories, and made plans for a weekend trip in the spring. For the first time in years, I let myself look forward to something just for me. That night, I called Grandma. Her voice was warm, full of love. "I'm proud of you, honey. I know it wasn't easy, but you did what you had to do." I blinked back tears. "I miss you, Grandma." "I miss you too, but you have to live your life, Rachel. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for that." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I realized that choosing myself didn't mean I loved my family any less. It just meant I was finally loving myself too. Spring arrived slowly. The city thawing out, sunlight streaming through my apartment windows. I started to fill my days with things that made me happy. Joining a yoga class, trying new recipes, exploring neighborhoods I'd never visited before. Each small act felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. At work, I was promoted to lead nurse on my floor. My boss congratulated me, and my coworkers threw a little party with cupcakes and flowers. I stood in the break room, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not just what I could do for them. For the first time, I felt truly seen. One afternoon, I got a letter from my mom. Her handwriting was shaky, the words careful. She wrote about how hard things had been since I left. How the bills were piling up, how Lauren was struggling to keep her marriage together. She didn't ask for money, but the message was clear. Things were falling apart without me. I read the letter twice, my heart aching. I wanted to fix everything, to swoop in and save them like I always had. But I knew that if I did, nothing would ever change. They would keep leaning on me until there was nothing left. Instead, I wrote back. I told my mom I loved her, that I missed her, but that I couldn't be the family's safety net anymore. I told her I hoped they would find their own strength, that I believed they could. It was the hardest letter I'd ever written, but when I dropped it in the mailbox, I felt a strange sense of relief. Like I was finally letting go of a burden I was never meant to carry alone. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker. I realized that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. As the weeks passed, I settled into my new life. I made new friends, planned a summer trip with my coworkers, and even started saving for a small vacation of my own. The freedom to make choices for myself, without guilt, without fear, felt like a gift I'd never known I needed. One evening, as I walked home from work, my phone buzzed. It was Lauren. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something in me wanted closure. I answered, bracing myself. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Hey, Ratch. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. For putting so much on you. For not seeing how much you were carrying. I was quiet, letting her words sink in. She continued, things have been hard. Mom's had to figure out the bills. Dad's working more hours. I've started budgeting, actually looking at what we spend. It's not easy. But I get it now. I really do. A lump formed in my throat. Thank you, Lauren. That means a lot. We talked for a while, about the kids, about work, about the little things that make up a life. For the first time in years, our conversation felt honest, not weighed down by expectation or resentment. After we hung up, I sat on my bed, feeling a quiet sense of healing. I knew things wouldn't be perfect, that there would still be hard days and old wounds. But I also knew that I'd finally broken the cycle. That night, I wrote in my journal, forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward, lighter than before. Summer bloomed in Boston, and with it came a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in years. I spent weekends at the park with friends, took day trips to the coast, and let myself enjoy the simple pleasures of my own company. I bought a bike, rode along the river at sunset, and felt the wind in my hair. Free, unburdened. At work, I thrived. My team respected me, my patients trusted me, and I found joy in helping people who appreciated my care. I realized that giving could be beautiful, when it was a choice, not an obligation. One Saturday, I hosted a small dinner at my apartment. My friends filled the space with laughter and warmth, sharing stories and dreams for the future. As I looked around the table, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had built a family of my own, one that loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. A few days later, I received a postcard from Grandma. It was a picture of a garden in full bloom. On the back, she'd written, "Proud of you, Rachel. Keep growing." I pinned it to my fridge, a daily reminder that I was allowed to flourish, to take up space, to live a life that was mine. That night, as I watched the city lights twinkle from my window, I realized I was no longer waiting for permission to be happy. I was giving it to myself, every single day. As the summer faded into autumn, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed. The old ache of guilt and obligation was still there, but it was softer now. A scar, not an open wound. I called Grandma every week, sharing stories and laughter, and she always ended our calls with, "I love you, honey. Don't forget to live your life." One afternoon, I got an email from my mom. It was short, but honest. She wrote, "I'm learning, Rachel. It's hard, but I'm trying. I hope you're happy." I replied, telling her about my promotion, my new friends, the little joys I'd found. I told her I was proud of her too. Lauren sent photos of the kids starting school, their smiles wide and genuine. She wrote, "We miss you. Maybe you can visit for Thanksgiving. No chores, no bills, just family." For the first time, I believed her. At work, I was asked to mentor a new nurse. She reminded me of myself. Eager, anxious, always trying to prove her worth. I told her what I'd learned. You can care for others without losing yourself. You're allowed to have boundaries. As the leaves turned gold and the air grew crisp, I realized I was finally living the life I'd always wanted. Not perfect, not without pain, but real and fully mine. One evening, I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city glow. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who gave and gave, hoping it would be enough. I whispered a quiet thank you to her, for surviving, for holding on, for finally letting go. Thanksgiving came, and for the first time in years, I decided to visit my family, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. I booked my ticket, packed a suitcase, and brought a pie from my favorite bakery in Boston. When I arrived, the house felt different. There was no list of chores waiting for me, no whispered requests for money, no tension simmering beneath the surface. My mom hugged me at the door, her eyes shining with real warmth. Lauren greeted me with a smile, the kids running to show me their latest drawings. We spent the weekend cooking together, sharing stories, and laughing over old memories. There were moments of awkwardness, of course. Old habits die hard. But for the first time, I felt like I belonged. Not because of what I could do for them, but because I was simply Rachel. On Thanksgiving Day, we sat around the table, holding hands as my dad said grace. He looked at me, his voice softer than I remembered. "We're grateful you're here, Rach. We're grateful for you." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle in my heart. That night, as I lay in the guest room, I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending the pain never happened. It was about choosing, every day, to show up for myself and for the people who were willing to meet me halfway. I drifted off to sleep, grateful for the second chance we'd all been given. Winter settled in, blanketing the city in quiet. Back in Boston, I decorated my apartment with twinkling lights and a tiny tree, filling the space with warmth and music. My friends came over for hot chocolate and movie nights, and I realized how much love I had let into my life simply by making room for it. My family called more often, but the conversations were different now. Lighter, more honest. My mom shared updates about her new job at the library. Lauren sent photos of the kids building snowmen, and even my dad called to ask about my work and my friends. There were no more hidden requests, No more guilt-laden sighs. Just connection. One evening, Grandma called. Her voice was strong, full of pride. You did it, Rachel. You broke the cycle. You showed all of us that it's okay to ask for help, but it's also okay to say no. I smiled, tears in my eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. She laughed. You always had it in you. You just needed to believe it. As the holidays approached, I sent out invitations for a small gathering at my place. My friends, my coworkers, and even Lauren and the kids planned to come. I cooked, decorated, and filled my home with laughter and light. That night, as we all sat together, sharing food and stories, I realized I had built a family by choice. A family that celebrated me for who I was, not what I could give. I looked around the room, my heart full, and knew that I was finally, truly home. New Year's Eve arrived, and as midnight approached, I stood on my balcony, watching fireworks bloom over the city. The cold air stung my cheeks, but I felt nothing but warmth inside. My phone buzzed with messages. Friends wishing me joy. Lauren sending a photo of the kids in their pajamas. My mom writing, "Proud of you, Rachel. Happy New Year." I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The years of giving until I was empty. The pain of setting boundaries. The fear of being called selfish. I remembered the moment I finally chose myself, the loneliness that followed, and the slow, steady healing that came after. I raised a glass to the sky, whispering a promise to myself. This year, I will keep choosing me. I will keep loving my family, but I will never again lose myself for their comfort. I will build a life that is mine, and I will let it be enough. As the clock struck 12, I felt a quiet certainty settle in my bones. I was no longer the fixer, the invisible helper, the one who gave without limit. I was Rachel, whole, worthy, and finally free. The city erupted in cheers, and I smiled, knowing that the new year truly was a new beginning. I stepped back inside, surrounded by laughter and love, ready to write the next chapter of my life. One where I was the main character, and where my happiness finally mattered most.